been left unread.
Yes.
Whichever situation you find
Only
yourself,
judgment.
you
Yeah.
can only thank God. Right?
In all things, we
Yes,
thank God.
give thanks. So great. So we're still on our book for the month. It's titled Atomic Habits by James Clear. Yes, yes, yes. An easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. Right? Great. So and there's no better caption like the one on above it, which says tiny changes, remarkable results. And that's the entire essence of this book, how tiny changes can help us achieve remarkable results. And last week we took time to go through an overview of the book. We also talked about tips on how to read faster and better. We also talked about some of the books that we've read, some
Yeah.
exciting things that happened since the start of the year. And as promised, we'll be doing a deep dive into the book. We've broken it into phases, which we'll be looking through to the end of the month. And then by the last session for the month, we'll do a final review and move on to the next book. That feels exciting already. Can't wait for the next book. So while we are still here, let's still focus on this book. And it's good to just start with the book. James Clear gave an easy intro into the book before giving us a couple of details on how to go about all of what was needed to achieve these results that were promised from the title of the book. And there was no better way than using himself as an example, right? He
Yeah.
started by telling his story on how he was hit by a baseball bat, and that's like almost changed. In fact, it actually changed the course of his life. Unfortunately, this was an accident that could have been prevented, but it happened while playing baseball because he loved baseball so much. And after he was hit, he was rushed to the hospital. He was even flown to the emergency care unit, and he managed for almost a year to recover from that. And after that, one of the things he struggled with was going back to baseball, but he was able to manage his way back
Yeah.
into it. And eventually he went from, and that was at junior school. He was going to high school, and one of the things that he had to do to be part of the baseball team in high school was to be as good as the other students.
As other students.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
Unfortunately for him, he had suffered this injury a few years back, about 2 years ago. The other students were still, so they already had like a competitive edge. And he noted that while they were playing video games at night, he was resting. He was developing habits that would put him in better shape towards achieving this goal. But unknowing to him, he was developing habits that would change his life forever.
For the better.
Exactly. And that was really the foundation of his writing this book, that those little habits, those going to bed early or reading a little bit more before you go to bed, or always cleaning up your room, or always polishing your shoes the night before, or always doing a quick revision on your notes after classes, those tiny habits.
Yeah. I mean, as you said before, tiny habits are what make the remarkable changes. So those tiny changes that he was making during that time, after his surgery, after the accident, led to this book and led to him indeed becoming better than he was.
Yeah, and it's because most people, when they think about change or getting better, they're thinking of this huge thing they need to do, this overhaul, this transformation, this new year, new me, this, all of these hashtags, and it's not by that.
No, it's not by that.
It's
Because
just
even
these
after
changes.
like the next day, that's the end.
Yes,
you,
yes.
you won't go back.
And so this reminds me of whenever it's like New Year's and you go on, you just drive by either you're off Bodilon or you're going towards Lekki. You see the Lekki Ikoyi Link Bridge. You see everybody doing New Year, New Me, like everybody. Like we passed there this way, there was nobody there. Nobody.
Yes. When gyms are very full in the new year, catch your store, boy.
And this is just April, right? It's April, right? And people have already abandoned.
The gyms are empty.
People have abandoned New Year goals.
Everything is empty.
And that's why gyms collect their money up front. For the year, just pay.
Very
because you know
smart.
you're not coming again.
Very
in
smart
April.
strategy.
So essentially it's just these little habits and all. And he just had a fantastic way of breaking it down for everyone to easily and quickly understand. And one of the things we try to focus on today is looking at habits on its own, like how they are formed, how they also can be broken, right? If you don't know how something is created, it's difficult to know
how it's broken.
Exactly. And that was one very fantastic thing he did in this book. So because many people just say, oh, you just need to change your habit, you just need to do the right thing, you need to stop doing
it's
the bad
easier
thing.
said than done.
Exactly. It's just
it's easier said than
exactly.
done.
And he just demystified habits, that when you look through all of how habits are formed, you can like, man, so this is it. And then immediately habits become demystified, and then it becomes a lot easier to break them. Great. Now we'll be going on a short break, and when we'll be back, we'll be going into habits, how they are formed, and eventually how they can be broken. Welcome back. Still with you, Shegun and
Queensley.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so like we said just before we went off for break, we're going to be taking a deep dive into habits, looking at how habits are formed as explained in the book, right? And we expect that a number of us are already reading the book. We hope you've started. If you haven't, please ensure you start. And we'll try not to put in too many spoilers, even though so that's why I'm not going to talk through all of it. We're just going to pick the first segment and then just walk us through a few things, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. So in talking about habits, James Clear tried to give us a sense of how habits are formed, and this is very instructive, right? It explains to us that habits are, the human body likes to go on autopilot, and that's one thing habits helps the human body to go. So when you do a number of things repeatedly, you just go into autopilot mode. Like your phone rings and you just pick it up.
Like the brain is very powerful. So anything you've done before, it tends to repeat that thing over again without you even being aware of it. Yeah.
I'll tell you something that happened. This is I feel very mischievous. So there was this particular so we had this chaplain back at school, and then it was we're really close. And of course, by virtue of being a chaplain, like there are always persons that are in his office for counseling, for all of that. So anytime I was gonna meet him for an update or something, say, hey, sir, what you asked me to do, all of that, I'll have to join a long queue. And because it was just with a number of persons. And it just struck me at some point that if you actually picked the phone to call, he would respond to you faster. And I was like, okay. So instead of I just picked the phone and I just called you. Like, instead of waiting, and it's just that reflex that people just see. Actually, I sent him a message. Yes, I sent him a message. Not call. So he saw the message and he responded immediately. So imagine if he wasn't into that habit, which all of us are into. Right? That once the phone just vibrates or like
that notification,
that notification. So how do you stop the habit? You can just cancel your notifications. so it's just very practical, and we can look at it in our everyday lives, right? When you realize that, hey, you are driven by some messages, and it just takes you on a different tangent. You just want to say, okay, how do I curb all of that? And this is nothing against our social media platforms at all. I don't have notifications on any of them.
Oh wow.
No notifications.
Wow, right? That's really good.
So when I'm ready, I go in. But the notifications, like if you did not plan it, it just says, hey, by the way, someone says hi on Instagram, and then you go to say hi back, and the next thing you see another thing. And for 15 minutes and all of that, you're right in there. So I try to take again.
I should try and do that.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
I should try and do that.
so you get it's some interesting analogy there. So going straight into it. So James talks about a few things that drive habit formation. So he talks about the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward. Yes. So the cue is the first that triggers the brain to initiate the behavior, right? It's that bit of information. It's just that thing. It could even be a smell. It could be just that tiny bit of information that triggers the very onset of the behavior. And then there is the craving, right? And that craving is the next step. This is that motivating force that's like, okay, either reminding you of the past experience or how you feel. Like how, okay, we use the social media analogy. I get a message and the next reminds me of how hard I laughed the last time I was going through. And I also want to now, I want to have that good feeling or even the update on what's happening with this person, with that person, all of this kind of hot juice. Exactly, hot tea. And you're not like, okay, let's get right into it. And you just realize that you're in there for a very long period of time. And thereafter, After the craving, we have the response, which is actually the
action that you take.
And then the reward is
The effect
you feel
you
happy,
feel.
you feel
Dopamine effect.
dopamine effect. Yes, exactly. It just gets you satisfied. So it satisfies your
Unquote
curiosity
and unquote,
and all of that. So essentially that's how these habits are formed. So there's always the cue, the craving, the reward, and the response, and then the reward, and it goes on and on and on and on. And if you can break these habits into these 4 segments, you can actually now say, okay, it's now an easier beast to tame, right? So you're not looking at the habit as a whole, but you're now looking at different
fractions of what makes the habit.
Exactly, and it's easy to treat. And once you take out a fraction, it's not whole again.
Exactly.
So and that's the beauty of James Clear's approach to understanding habit and actually breaking habits, one, and also even building habits that would be that will be beneficial and help based off of who you are and what makes you tick, right? So you also broke it into 2 phases: the problem phase and the solution phase. So the cue and the craving, that's the problem phase. That's what stirs up curiosity, what triggers it. And then you now try to solve that problem by responding and then getting the reward, right? In some cases, it might be punishment, but
yes.
Right. So that's exactly how he's structured this, and he gave a couple of interesting examples, and I'll just walk through a few of those examples for us. Says, okay, your phone buzzes with a new text message. That's the cue. The craving is you want to learn the content of the message. Then the response, you grab your phone and read the text message. Then the reward is that you satisfy your craving to read the message. You grab your phone and that becomes associated with your phone buzzing. So anytime your phone buzzes, you see it, you pick it up, you read, and that's how that entire loop is formed. And there's another example around emails, right? The cue is that you are answering emails, and then you begin to feel stressed and overwhelmed by work. You want to feel in control, and then the response is you bite your nails, right? And then you satisfy your craving to reduce stress. Biting your nails becomes associated with answering emails or anything that is stressful to you. And then there's this example of you wake up, that's the cue. You want to feel alert, right? Which is commonplace with a lot of working class folks.
9 to 5.
Then you take a cup of coffee, right? And then the reward is you satisfy your craving to feel alert by drinking a cup of coffee, and that becomes your habit every morning after you wake up. And okay, this is interesting. You smell a donut shop as you walk down the street near your office. Then you begin to crave a donut, and then you buy a donut and eat it. So you satisfy your craving of eating a donut by buying a donut, and that becomes that habit. So regardless of the
it's
cost.
really hard to habit. All the examples you mentioned, I can relate to a few of them. It's really hard to break bad habits. And I feel like James Clear has made it clear for us. See what I did there? By just demarcating these habits into 2 phases, the problem phase and the solution phase, and then further dividing it into 4 phases. So the cue, the craving, and then the response and the reward. So once you know, okay, this cue, it will lead in something bad I don't want to do. So you know that, okay, that I should just cut out that craving and the loop is broken.
Yes.
As I said, it's easier said than done.
It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
See, sometimes life just helps you out, right? So I remember when we were in secondary school, right? We had this, our dormitory or school wasn't far from it. Tantalizers that just opened. So we were behind. And then we saw when they were grilling the chicken and the smell was that cue did not result in any.
That's very hard.
The cue and craving did not result in any response or reward because there was no money to buy and you could never leave the school. So but it's important that we understand those things. So if you were like a typical working class person and he was passing by to work every morning, he just passes by and just smells it, and then of course he's triggered to buy, and then he spends on that, right? So of course, and people use this to their advantage. So the folks that are into the food business, they know that
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
this is what triggers people's.
True.
Yeah, so they
True.
just keep it. They just keep it.
Yeah.
They keep it. They
And
keep
I
it
don't
out there.
know, there's this supermarket that sells this really nice bread. I think somewhere in ShopRite something. And I don't know, but when they are baking it, the smell
As in,
is
like,
just
you
round.
cannot- you
So there's
cannot-
no
you
how
cannot miss it.
that you step into that ShopRite
cannot miss
at
it.
that period and not
Yes.
buy bread.
As in, like,
There's no
they could
how.
have done it at night. They could have done it at night,
Yeah.
but they decided, okay,
During the day it's better.
during the day is better. That's how we can get more customers. Okay, good. So those are some interesting analogies around this, and you can look at it in your everyday life. What are those cues that result into those habits? And you can just walk back, right? So
Yeah.
if you like, if you realize that, for instance, someone that likes driving very fast and like, okay, why am I driving very fast? It's because, okay, I'm almost late. Okay, and then you just walk back. Okay, and then, okay, my alarm probably did not, or I didn't have an alarm ring to notify
Yeah.
me that, okay, I needed to be somewhere like 5 minutes or so. So you can just walk by, just, okay, how do I build this? So I want to be awake like 30 minutes before I need to get to work, and then I get in. Once the alarm wakes me up, I get up, get ready, get dressed, get into the car, and I have a much easier drive, and I don't need to
and a safer drive as
exactly.
well.
A safer drive as well. So essentially, this is how you can just walk back on those your habits, and then find a way to first understand what makes that habit before you try to even say you want to change it, right? So again, and it's interesting that James has tried to work out this entire book around these 4 processes, right? So the cue, the craving, the response, the reward. So he's tried to work out all of it and create laws around them for the book, right? So the first law is around the cue, and essentially the cue is what makes it obvious, right? The cue makes it obvious, right? Then the second law is around the craving, and the craving is what makes it attractive, right? Right. And then the third law is around the response, and that's what makes it easy. You just respond to something you're attracted to. And then the fourth is the reward, which makes it satisfying. So that's
the
what you
reason why
get.
you actually do the habit. as well.
Exactly. So again, so once you can just break it into these 4, right, you are good to go with respect to this. Now, the interesting thing we're going to talk about before we wrap up today's session is how to break bad habits. And once we are back from the break, we'll take a look into that, and I'm sure we're excited.
Very, very excited.
so let's get right into it. welcome back.
Welcome back.
Yes. So yes, we're going to talk about how to break bad habits, right? So it's very simple. It's the inverse of how to create bad habits in the first place, or good habits. And don't forget, habits are neutral, right? It's just, they could either be good or bad, right? Depending on what the circumstances are. And so like we said, how habits are created: first it's made obvious, then made attractive, made easy, and then made satisfying. Right? So to just tweak that, all we need to do is just inverse all of it, right? So you make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. As simple as that. Right?
ABC.
So, I mean, like, if there's something a habit you do not like, you just have to ensure you try and make it invisible. So what are the cues? What are those things that cue you into it? So you want to stay off donuts, and the smell of donuts on the way to your office always triggers that memory, and then you just find yourself in the store buying donuts to
and
eat.
eating it.
Yeah, so you just say, okay, let's change our route. I'm walking far away,
Change
so you
your way
cannot
to work.
exactly. And if you can't change your way, Kwesi suggested you
Wear nose mask.
So right. So again, you just have to ensure that you make it invisible. Like those cues, you have to look away from them. In some cases, it could be like I mentioned earlier, the notification, right? If you do not want to read emails, and there are ways your emails can pop up on your phone every now and then. In fact, there's actually a tool on the emails where you can determine when emails download. So, normally when someone sends you an email, you get it immediately.
Yeah.
You could do it so that, I'm not exactly sure, but you could do it so that your emails do not download immediately sent. So it downloads every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, or every hour, or something like that. So that's like a cue for you. So you go in and you read all of the emails in the last hour, and after that. So again, those are things that people just do just to ensure that their lives are not driven by whatever emails drop in their mailboxes, or whatever calls get into their phones, devices, and all of that. Because in many cases, it's a lot of distraction, and a lot of people suffer from getting distracted, right? They lose focus, they lose out on their goals because of there's so much distraction. Keyword productivity, right? They're not as productive, and it just helps for you to shape your environment and all of those things that you believe hinder you from being as productive as you would love to. So now that we know how to create habits and how to break them, it's pretty much just inverse of the other, right? We want to focus on the cue, right? On how to start towards building good habits. So, I mean, many people place a lot of priority when there's a habit to be broken. They place so much priority on breaking that habit, forgetting that it might even actually be easier just building new habits.
Yeah.
Right. So just because, I mean, you can't be in a vacuum, right? You can't
you can't just leave yourself empty like that. Something will definitely fill it.
Exactly. So you have to create a new habit. So if it's a case of, okay, you decided that, okay, I think I eat too much, right? So it's not to say, okay, I'm going to stop eating.
Yeah, it's impractical. You can't just stop. I mean, most diets say eat little, but at the same time, I don't think it's not possible. It's that you eat a lot, or you just replace it with something that's unhealthy, entirely unhealthy.
Yeah. So it's not like you will not eat, but it's something that you
have to do it the right way.
Exactly.
Eat the right way.
Yes, or you eat. So, like, for instance, right? Instead of someone eating a lot of carbs, the person can actually eat a lot of veggies. But the problem is that this veggie life is not cheap.
Exactly, it's not cheap.
So you have to find,
and it's not easy in Nigeria.
It's not easy. It's not easy. Even anywhere in the world, trust me, it's not easy.
True.
So, in fact, and I mean, like, go to civilized worlds, right? Civilized countries. Fast food is usually a lot cheaper, and healthy food is
more expensive.
It's more expensive. Even in Nigeria, so we try smaller because at least as bad as it's bad, you go and buy a weed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, you can't just leave it in the vacuum. You can't just decide, okay, I take a lot of chocolate. I'm not going to have chocolates any longer. You want to say, okay, how can I replace this, right? Or how can I eat in smaller portions? Or how can I deceive my brain to think I'm eating a lot? Now, there's one interesting thing that I found amusing, right? Just changing the shape of your plate can actually alter your eating habits, your craving for food. Like using a smaller plate and filling it up, your brain still has the impression that this is a full plate of eba, whereas it's a tiny full plate of eba. Or like when you take a large plate and you put a tiny, then you're like almost confused. So again, just making it obvious can just change how you view it. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the brain is very powerful and well, second to the heart or is debatable, but then the brain is like, well, the center of everything we do. Sure. So I feel like once you can, well, deceive, as you use, deceive that brain, like it's easy to do anything, form good ones, break habits. So as you said, I'm sure there are other examples of ways to change the way you think. And I'm sure like it's actually a strategy you can use to indeed form good habits.
Yeah, and we'd like to hear from everyone. Like you can drop your comments on YouTube. You could actually drop your comments on social media handles of LagoonTV, Lagoon Radio, Kawe Book Clubs. Right. Let's just get a sense of how you've actually changed habits or formed habits, right? And I mean, like these quick tips, like just using a smaller plate instead of a much bigger plate, can actually change how your brain perceives whether you're eating a lot or eating much less, right? And again, we'll stop on making it obvious because that's one of those things that we will really want to focus on this week. Next week we'll look at making it attractive and making it easy, right? So just making it obvious helps a lot in how you are able to break old habits, bad old habits, and create good new habits. Right? Yeah. Good. Yes. So in closing, Quinsley, would you like to share any habits you've broken or or formed, depending on how you look at it?
Yeah, just quickly going. I mean, you mentioned the part about how when you get plenty emails, it stresses you out. Look at your phone. I mean, the same thing happened to me in school, uni. When I'm having a very tough question, I just get distracted and I go onto my phone, social media to make me feel better. But then I felt that once I get a very tough question, I'm dealing with something tough, I just take a walk or do something more refreshing. Just go out, do something better, like go around, pick up a nice book, try and relieve some stress, not on social media, but something.
Keyword, pick up a nice book.
Yes, pick
to
up
relieve your stress.
Exactly.
Not social media. Social media adds to your stress. Trust me, it adds to your stress, right? So thanks a lot, guys. It's been a great pleasure engaging us all on this Book World show on Lagoon Radio and TV. We remain Kawe Book Club, and we are always a fun bunch to hang around because, of course, there are always books around, right?
This is fun. We're very fun.
It's fun. So thanks a lot. It was a great pleasure. See you next week. Bye.
Bye. Have a nice week.